You're listening to the Life Like You Mean It podcast, episode number 26. How much time of day do you spend ruminating over the past or fretting about something coming up in the future? Be honest. Most people find it difficult to let go of the past, especially when it didn't turn out the way that we had expected. And that increases our worry about the future. What if we are in a similar situation? Surely we need to be prepared for that, right? And the more prepared we are, the less anxiety we'll feel, correct? No, that's the scare tactics and manipulation of anxiety talking, playing off the fear of your past experiences. Today we're talking about the anxiety gremlin that sits on your shoulder, affecting every aspect of your life, and the steps you can take to stop allowing it to define and control you. My guest today, Matthew Pappas, is a certified life coach, an NLP Master Practitioner at BeyondYourPast.com, as well as a podcast host and a survivor advocate. He specializes in helping clients overcome the debilitating anxiety that holds them back. As a trauma-informed coach and a survivor of abuse himself, Matt is keenly aware of the unique struggles that survivors must work through in order to heal. Matt's dedication to his work is mesmerizing. I've been on his Beyond Your Past podcast twice now, which is part of the Mental Health News radio network, which began in 2016 and consistently receives thousands of listens each month. In fact, his podcast was one of the first to offer me the platform to share my story of abuse recovery, an opportunity that positively altered my life forever. In addition to his own coaching business, Matt also is the co-host of the daily recovery support calls on cptsdfoundation.org, which offers trauma-informed support 7 days a week, and he operates tealribboncreations.com, a web design and podcasting service for mental health professionals, advocates, and survivors. Do you see what I mean by mesmerizing? I'm so proud to call Matt a friend and to have him here with us on the show today. He truly believes that we all have the power inside of us to take our life back from anxiety and overcome what's been holding us back from being the person we truly want to be. Are you ready to beat the tricks, lies, and tactics of anxiety? Me too. So let's dive right in and let you meet my friend, Matt.
You're listening to the Life Like You Mean It podcast, where we firmly believe that you, and only you, have the power to make the changes you seek in your life. Survivor of 10 years of child abuse, Lisa Sabaniak, will help you to empower yourself to overcome your limitations, in whatever form they take, to build the life you truly deserve. It's time to hear from fellow experts who know firsthand what building a successful and satisfying life because of our past experiences is like, and exactly what it takes to do it. If you're ready, willing and able to get honest with yourself, roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty with the hard work that lasting change takes, you're in the right place. Here's your host, NLP practitioner, speaker, Reiki master, author, and chipaholic, Lisa Sabaniak.
This episode is dedicated to my free online webinar, 3 Steps to Moving Forward After Abuse. In this webinar, I give you my step-by-step formula to finally move forward after your abuse to build the life you deserve, one that is happier and more fulfilled. The grip that our past experiences have on our lives has the ability to keep us living in the past, unable to become the person that you know you can be. But it doesn't have to be this way. I know exactly what it's like to be held captive from my past abuse, reliving it over and over, allowing it to have full power over me, running my show from the shadows. And I also know exactly what it takes to break free from that darkness, because I've done it. When you're ready for real change, head on over to lifelikeyoumeanit.com/forward to watch your free webinar today. That link again is lifelikeyoumeanit.com/forward. This link will also be in the show notes. And hello, Matt. Thank you so much for being on the Life Like You Mean It podcast with us today. How are you?
What's up, Lisa? How are you doing?
I am fantastic. I want us to dive right in, and I want to know how you started being an anxiety coach and why.
Well, yeah, we are jumping right into it, aren't we, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, essentially, I wanted to help people in the way that I was helped. Like, that's the short answer. Um, I am a survivor of various forms of abuse as a child, and so I work with survivors as well. But my primary focus and my passion lies with helping survivors and anybody deal with and overcome the grip that anxiety has. I mean, anxiety is the number one mental health disorder, number one mental health challenge, whichever you prefer to call it. Really, in the world. I mean, that and depression are two of the most common ones that affect the most people around the world. So it stands to reason that there are a ton of people who are dealing with it, and also a ton of people who could probably or are looking for more effective ways to try and handle it, to try and beat it. So I used to struggle with anxiety quite a bit. It ruled my life as a teenager. It ruled my life growing up as a young adult, and then into adulthood now in my 40 something years, whatever that is. Um, and so it was something that I was anxious, I was worrying, I was overthinking, I was trying to control things I couldn't control. I didn't understand what anxiety was. I didn't understand what it wasn't. I just figured it's me. I'm just Matt. I'm just anxious. That's just the way it is. And when I started working with a therapist in the trauma recovery world to work through my trauma stuff and heal from that, I began to see how anxiety was affecting me in that realm as well. And then my kind of unofficial mentor of sorts, Jody Amen, who wrote a book called You Won Anxiety Zero, which was a book that kind of saved me, helped me understand what anxiety is, what it is not, how anxiety uses tricks and lies and tactics, and it really lays out in just an easy to read way what anxiety is trying to do to you in virtually any situation in life and how you can overcome it. So I read that book through 3 times, twice on my own, and once I did it on like a weekly Periscope session like a couple of years ago. I spent every Sunday reading through it. And so basically going through all of that, I realized that, I was able to see anxiety for what it was and what it wasn't. I was able to take my power back, and I began to see that, hey, if I can do this, then, kind of the old cliche, well then, probably anybody else can too. But I realized that just because the information's out there doesn't mean that you either know about it or know how to implement it or feel that you're even worthy of implementing it. So that's the short story long of really just getting into it to try and help people in the way that I was helped with coaches and through reading books and videos and of course my certifications and all that stuff. So
I love it. It's so true, isn't it? Anxiety is just people really just don't understand what it is and what it isn't. I love that. Can you just give us a little bit of your insight of what you discovered anxiety is and is not for you?
well, I mean, we could talk for hours about that, so I'll just kind of try and
Yeah.
narrow it down a little bit. But essentially, like, anxiety is not a life sentence. You're not born with anxiety. It's not something that has to control you. Anxiety is not just quote unquote who you are or what you are or what defines you. Now, it may feel that way, and when you don't understand it or you don't, you know, realize how it affects you in so many different ways, then you do feel like it kind of holds you in its own grip, and you do feel like it runs your life. But the good part is that when you understand it, like one of the biggest keys to beating anxiety is simply understanding it and knowing that I may feel a certain way, but I don't have to feel that way. That is anxiety talk, and that is a lie. That is a trick. That is a manipulation. Think of anxiety, so to speak, as the gremlin on your shoulder or the devil on your shoulder, or
Mm.
perhaps that little voice that tells you, you can't do this. You're never going to be able to do that. You're not worthy of this. That's too hard. You're going to fail. You always fail.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody believes in you. every time you try this, it never works out, all that kind of stuff and more, whatever that sounds like for you, that's the lie of anxiety, and it uses your past against you, right? I mean, anxiety
Yeah.
is the leftover fear response of a past situation, right?
Yeah.
It is.
And
And
who doesn't have that gremlin on their shoulder saying those things? You know what I mean?
yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah. I mean, anxiety uses that. It uses your inner critic against you. It uses perceived past failures or challenging circumstances against you. It uses whatever it can, then it piles on and it piles on and it piles on. Like anxiety pulls no punches. It will just keep doing whatever it can to just kind of make you feel like you're just so overwhelmed that you just want to stop and give up and not even try.
yeah. So is that where it gets its power from then, your past experiences?
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, it really does because, a lot of times people think that anxiety and fear are the same thing, and they're absolutely not. Right now, anxiety will play off of fear. It will use fear to its advantage in your life, but anxiety gets its power from struggles that you've had at work or at home or in relationships or parenting or at your bowling league or whatever it is that you do. If you struggle
Mm.
in some way or you have some perceived past failure or way that you wish something would have gone better, anxiety will take that, twist it around, and all of a sudden you're terrible, you're worthless, you're helpless, you suck, there's nothing you can do to change it, it's just who you are. So suddenly you find yourself closing yourself off to other people, you find yourself not reaching out for help, you just identify yourself through the eyes of anxiety rather than identifying yourself through the eyes of somebody who is empowered and who can and who has the power to take their life back. Even whether you've been dealing with anxiety for years and years or decades.
Wow. So what in the world can we do about it? Like how do we separate that feeling of anxiety from the fear and actually recognize it for what it is? And then once we do, what do we do about it?
Well, like I said, the key first off is understanding that, anxiety is something that can be controlled, it can be managed, and it is something that you can beat. And really, it comes down to how bad do you want it. And, there's an old cliche of, you know, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired, or however that goes.
Oh yeah,
But
I love
it
that.
really is. It's like, how bad do you want to kick anxiety out of your life? Because it's not easy. It takes time. It takes dedication. It takes repetition. It takes the will to say, okay, I'm tired of living the way I have been. And if I look back over the last year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, am I happy with the way things have turned out? Am I content with the way that I react or deal with certain situations or just give anxiety kind of carte blanche to have its way with me? And if the answer is no, then there are things that you can do to work on it, right? And
Right.
one of the easiest things, and I say easiest as in one of the most fundamental things that you can do is to ask yourself simply, whenever you begin to feel anxious, is ask yourself simply, is this anxiety or is it reality?
Oh, I
And,
love that.
because anxiety is the overthinking, the over worrying, the fear response when you're actually safe and there's nothing truly wrong. It's the pit in your stomach, it's the pain in your shoulder, it's the nauseous, it's the all the stuff, you know, that
Yeah.
happens when you feel anxious or you're having an anxiety attack, which by the way, those are two different things.
Right.
But it's so you ask yourself, or is it reality? Like, am I genuinely not safe? Is there something to be fearful of? Do I need to get help? Is there something where I need to, reach out or get out of here or get safe or do something to help myself? And so when you ask yourself that question, you immediately disengage, this hijack in your brain, and you start to ground yourself by literally thinking it through and using logic, right? Like anxiety cannot stand logic. It doesn't work. Anxiety
Yes.
thrives on emotions. It thrives on you not taking the time to think over a situation, right? And it's not that you have to stand somewhere for hours and hours and overthink something. Like then, you're kind of defeating the purpose. But it's, I'm feeling anxious right now. Take a second, pause, you know,
Yeah.
do and then ask yourself what's really going on here. And if it is anxiety, then you can kind of break it down. Okay, well, why am I anxious? Where is this coming from? What is this message? Have I felt this way before? And you can kind of understand, if it's that old inner critic voice or something else from your past.
Yeah.
And then again, versus, well, is a reality, do I need to get out of here? Am I generally not safe, or whatever the case may be? And then you can act on your own behalf and do self-care afterwards.
Oh, I love that. It's so interesting because I'm in the middle of reading The Power of Now, the book by Eckhart Tolle. And have you read The Power of Now?
I have not read it fully.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through it. I can't believe that this is a book that I haven't read all the way,
Yep,
but
yep.
I'm halfway through it right now, and I'm doing it for a 6 weekly book club that I run online to try to help motivate people to do their personal development, personal growth through reading, and kind of expanding their horizons. And I am in love with this book because right now, through the first half, he is really focused on how a lot of our anxiety is coming from the fact that we are not living in the present, that we are spending so much of our time caught up in the past or thinking about the future. But in this moment right now, there's nothing to actually worry about. Everything's perfect right now, right? But we get ourselves so wrapped up in, like you were saying, the things from our past, things that have happened to us before, our past experiences, whether they come from, like you and I, coming from abuse, or if they're coming from just a negative experience. Maybe somebody has had at work in the past when they had to stand up and give a presentation and their PowerPoint froze, or just anything at all. And that then the next time that they've got to do that presentation, they naturally start to think about the past and then put it in context with the future and start visualizing the same thing happening with the future. And they start to problem solve so that they would feel much better about, well, if this happens, this is what I'll do this time. But they're spending all of their time living out of the present, and that's actually causing their anxiety. If we could just find a way to be in the here and now, the majority of our anxiety would be gone. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, living fully present in the moment, mindfulness, huge, amazing way to help beat anxiety. But yeah, I mean, when you time travel in your mind, whether in the past or the future, right? It's all about, you want to, or you're wishing that you would have done something differently. You're wishing something would have happened differently. You're wishing, you never would have gone through this, that, or the other thing, and that may be totally legit. But the fact is that when you go backwards, and you've already learned as much from that as you possibly can, ruminating it and going over it is only going to make matters worse, because you can't change what happened before. Doesn't matter how bad it was or how good it was, you can't change it. And that kind of goes into the whole realm of radical acceptance, which is a whole nother thing. But and the same thing with the future, right? Like, oh my God, I had this big presentation, and last week my, I forgot my, my handout or whatever, or like you said, the program crashed or whatever. Or, oh my God, 3 months from now, I have this one bill coming up. How am I going to pay for it? So you're trying to literally gain a false sense of control over something that you can't possibly control. And that's where another area where anxiety loves to thrive in is you trying to figure out a way to deal with something tomorrow, next week, 6 months from now, a year, that you can't possibly control. I mean, you can, plan ahead, which is great. Like, planning is great. I love planning. I live by my calendar. But trying to overplan, overthink, overcompensate, and let something that a month from now is going to may or may not happen, and if it does, it probably won't happen the way you think it does. Allowing that to permeate your life every day is what anxiety loves.
Yes, absolutely. I really like that. It gives you a false sense of control, because I know I can still be to this day guilty of that. If I've got something new to me or something that's really challenging, right, that's coming up, I do have this tendency where I will stop and I'll catch myself doing random things, while I'm getting ready in the morning or having my breakfast or whatnot, and I catch myself, wait a second, I'm planning out what my response is going to be if this happens and that happens and this person says this, and I have a sense of failure at doing it because it didn't go according to plan, or blah blah blah. It's like, whoa, slow it down, Lisa. Like, it's one thing to think that, oh yes, I've got a plan of action for everything, but really you have no control over it, right? Like, you just have to let that go and learn to trust yourself that whatever is going to happen, you've got this. You've got things that you've had to deal with on the fly that, were much bigger than this, and you've done it. You've soared. This is no different. This is a walk in the park compared to some of the other things you've had to do.
Right, exactly. And I mean, if you think about it, like if you're sitting here today listening to this podcast, you have a 100% success rate of overcoming whatever it is in your life. Now, you may not have liked it and it may not have gone the way you thought it would or hoped it would, but you're still here. You figured out a way to deal with it. And that's the same thing, right? Like it's you can plan ahead, if you have a big presentation, well certainly you're going to plan, you're going to do your outline, you're going to write your notes, you're going to, do your FAQs or whatever it is you do. But after you do that, you say, I've done as much as I can and I'm going to let it go. And I'm just going to do my best. And rather than going back and overthinking it and tweaking it and all the stuff, that's where the anxiety comes in. That's where the, oh my God, what if this doesn't work? Oh my God, what if that's not going to happen again? Or whatever it is, you start to get all this stuff in your head again. So, preparing is good. Obviously that's something that is, necessary, but prepare, do your best, and then just let it go. And, understand that if you think it's going to go perfectly, it's not. If you think it's going to go horribly, it's probably not either. It's somewhere in the middle. And so, you know, something else I always like to say is if you try and prepare for the worst case scenario, you'll never be prepared for the worst case scenario.
Oh, I like that. I
Because
like
really,
that.
like, I mean, you can't possibly cover every single possible scenario or outcome that's going to happen, right? Like, and if you
Yes.
overthink it to the point, it's going to drive you up a wall. And first of all, if that worst case scenario were to unfold, which it probably won't, but if it did, you're not going to have any emotional bandwidth to deal with it because you just spent all that time trying to figure it all out. And when you're in the heat of the moment, anxiety makes you forget what you know. So all that stuff you had in your head, gone. The notes that you've written down, suddenly you can't read them. And,
Yeah.
you get all emotional and flustered. So, planning is good and being prepared is good. But, know that when you've done your best, you walk away, you let it go, and you say, my best is good enough. And I'll see what happens when I get there.
Yes, because your worst case scenario is also relative, is it not? I mean, if I
Of
was
course
to
it
sit
is.
there
Yeah.
and I was to think, okay, I'm going to go and do this, and this thing, if this happens, that would be the worst case scenario. So I've got myself completely prepared. I know how I'm going to deal with it. I've got a backup plan. I know what I'm going to say. I know how the look of on my face I want to have, so I look like I've got it all together. I've planned it all out. And then you can't possibly plan for everything, like you're saying. So then that doesn't unfold. My worst case doesn't happen, but something else does. Something else that if somebody would have said, oh, what if this happens? I'd say, I got that. That's not a big deal. I'm concerned about this big thing. And because I'm so prepared for the big thing, this other little thing that happens that I wasn't prepared for, now all of a sudden seems like, the sky has fallen, right? It's now my worst case scenario. And I'm going to beat myself up for days about how I handled it, right? And just run it over and over in my head.
Yep. That is exactly right. And if you think about it too, right? Like, let's say that everything, like, let's say that prepare and you expect the worst case scenario to happen, right? So it doesn't happen and everything goes good. Well, you're sitting there, and how much time have you wasted trying to prepare for something that didn't happen, right? And if
Yes.
it went well, you're so exhausted from trying to prepare for all the horrible stuff that you can't really enjoy how great it went because your brain's like, dude, I got nothing left.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
I need to go
almost
sleep.
disappointed. Like I'm
Right?
I'm laughing not at people who are going, "Oh my gosh, this is me." I'm laughing because I can completely and totally relate. This is definitely me, right? I've done this before, not so much now, but thank goodness. But yeah, if things would go really, really well in whatever it is that we're talking about, and I would almost be disappointed because I would have myself prepared so much to deal with things going wrong and they didn't. And it's almost like that makes it so that I won't allow myself to really appreciate how well it went.
That is exactly the way it works, right? And and the worst part about it is that we do this over and over and over all the time. It's what we do because we default to what we've either been taught or what we train ourselves to do. And so, in order to kind of break that cycle, you have to make a conscious effort of, you know, doing your prep work and then letting it go, and using healthy coping skills and self-care and stuff to distract, so you don't sit there and think about it, and go back and open up the laptop again after you just spent how long working on this presentation, and being okay with it not being perfect, or being okay with you not being able to cover every single possible scenario, and basically essentially just letting yourself off the hook.
Oh, I like that. And I like that you brought up distraction as well. So, why do you think distraction is so important to beating anxiety?
Well, because, think of it this way: when you are anxious about something, right? Whether it's like a full-blown anxiety attack, or it's just I feel a little nervous, a little wobbly, a little unsure, maybe, some kind of anticipation of something happening. So either way, it's it it's ruling your mind, right? Like, it's all you're thinking about. It's all that's in your head is anxiety, this, anxiety, that, this problem, this situation. Oh my God, I failed before, I'm going to fail again, whatever it might be. So one of the great ways to beat anxiety in any given situation is to use healthy distraction, right? Put your mind and your efforts somewhere else. But the key is, before you do that, is that it's kind of a double-edged sword, because in order to have healthy distraction, you first have to recognize where the issue is, right? Like, you cannot ignore anxiety and expect it to go away. Like, you just can't. It's going to come back. It's going to it's going to come back stronger and harder every single time you ignore it and suppress it, right? So you have to acknowledge, hey, anxiety, I see what you're doing. I know where this is coming from. I've been here before. I understand how, last time went. And basically, you kind of almost, in a sense, talk yourself off the ledge. And then after you acknowledge and figure out exactly what's going on, then you go distract, right? You call a friend, send a text, go do some self-care, go out for a walk, whatever it is that you do that gets your mind occupied in another direction, so you don't sit there and overthink it. And it takes practice to do that. Like, it takes a lot of practice to get good at it. And even when you're good at it, you still struggle at it, because the human mind wants to, at its core, figure things out, make sense of things, and keep you safe, right?
Yeah.
So the mind is always trying to figure this stuff out. So putting your efforts and your mind elsewhere, by using grounding techniques, right? Like, I, kind of use the 5 4 3 2 1 method. 5 things I see, 4 things I hear, 3 things I can touch, 2 things I can taste, 1 thing I can feel, whatever it is, right? Like, using your 5 senses in whatever order you want to put your mind and your focus somewhere else to ground you out of that anxious situation. Then you can say, okay, what's going on here? All right, I understand it. I see where it's coming from. Now I can go distract. And when you do that, you teach yourself to look at something with a logical mindset, with an inquisitive or a curious mindset, rather than a judgmental mindset, or rather than a mindset of just go with it because that's what I always do. So it's a conscious effort of retraining, and distraction is key, because it takes your mind off of that presentation, off of that whatever's coming up, and puts it squarely on something that you enjoy, or something that allows you to disengage that hijack that your brain just went under.
This is the perfect spot to take a quick break and talk about one of my free webinars. Yep, free. I created my 3 steps to moving forward after abuse free webinar so I could offer you the support you need to pull yourself out of the dark hole abuse leaves us in. In this 45-minute webinar, you'll get my 3 step-by-step proven strategies to finally start moving forward today, and the secret to making better decisions that truly meet your needs and propel you forward to a life on your own terms. You'll also learn how my clients are living their dream lives while no longer letting old dysfunctional belief systems caused by others to rule their lives. And you'll learn the secret mindset strategy that makes it happen practically overnight. And yes, it's absolutely free. Change is scary, but we can't have growth without it. Are you ready to grow, heal, and learn? Head on over to lifelikeyoumeanit.com/forward to watch your free webinar today. You've literally got nothing to lose because it's free. That link is lifelikeyoumeanit.com/forward. This link is also in the show notes. Are you ready to make some serious changes by living your life like you mean it? I've got just the thing for you. I've created a free 30-day challenge to help you transform your mindset and your emotional well-being. For 30 days, you'll receive a daily email packed with goodness, including a new mindset exercise for you to tackle, as well as fun things like meditations. All you need to do is to commit to this challenge by registering and then opening the emails each and every day and completing your challenges. Simple, right? If you said yes, then you're ready and you know that you deserve this. You can register for free by going to lifelikeyoumeanit.com/challenge. You can also find this link in the show notes. Audiobooks Now is a fabulous site and app for you to use to listen to your favorite books, new and old, right from your device. You can listen in your car, while exercising, preparing dinner, cleaning the house, taking a nice bubble bath, anywhere you like. And the best part is Audiobooks Now is offering you 50% off your first audiobook. To take them up on this offer, visit lifelikeyoumeanit.com/audiobooks. That's lifelikeyoumeanit.com/audiobooks, all one word. This link is also available in the show notes. Oh, I really like that. I like to use visualization personally, but I've had a big shift with how I use it. So I used to, when I used to be more of a kind of a type A personality, if you will, where I would be over planning everything, overthinking everything, and wanting to be fully prepared for any outcome. I would use the visualization in that sense almost as a negative reinforcement, because I would actually be visualizing myself in the activity that I was anxious about, but it going exactly according to plan, it going perfectly, me shining star, everybody clapping, or, whatever it is kind of thing. And then I slowly started to realize that, well, actually that's not the best thing for me, because I just need to do a few little tweaks to make it the best thing for me, because otherwise I'm just basically telling myself that, it has to go this way in order for me to be happy with it. And if it doesn't go this way, I'm not going to be happy with it. And so I started to shift the way I was visualizing, so that I was visualizing more about how I felt while I was doing that task or giving that presentation or whatever it was, so that it was allowed to be adaptable. It was allowed to change and allowed to shift and allowed to maybe not look exactly the way that I had planned, but it was about the way that I felt, the confidence that I would feel, the pride in myself, the acceptance of myself, and, that type of thing that is then more of a tangible, that things can go wrong. Things don't have to go exactly according to plan. They don't even have to go wrong. They can go different in a really positive way, but because it's not exactly how I planned it before, that would, kick me off kilter, and I would start to get stressed about that in the moment. But by focusing on how I wanted to feel during it, it really shifted everything. And that's how I deal with pretty much everything now. Do you like to use visualization?
I've used it. It doesn't work that well for me. I mean, it's a great skill, and if it works for you, that is amazing, right? Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm not here to tell you it doesn't work. I think for me, because I tried to do it the way that you used to do it, I've kind of like soured myself onto, like, I've tried to reframe it and into different ways, right? Because we know reframing is a huge tool, but I've tried to reframe it into something different, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't resonate with me personally. But it is what it is, right? I mean, the key is, though, right, to visualize yourself, if you're going to do it, not in the way that you mentioned, because, right, you're almost setting yourself up for failure, like, regardless.
Yeah.
And so using the visualization of, regardless of what happens, I'm still going to be okay. I'm still going to wake up tomorrow. I'm going to handle it. I'll figure it out. It doesn't define me. My worth is not attached to this project or this situation. And, using those types of visualizations are amazing. And again, if it works for you, that's great. And the good thing about, like, all the techniques, that we're sharing here today, the ones that I work with clients on, is not everything works for everybody. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. And it doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means it doesn't work for you. And that's totally cool.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to get across with this whole podcast, is to be able to give people a platform to share their story and what works for them, but for the audience to be able to see that there's a whole plethora of different things that people are overcoming, that they're not alone in whatever it is they feel like is their obstacle that they're kind of butting their head against. But more importantly, for them to be able to see that there's so many different options. And while some people will be talking about the same sort of things and will have some general trends for sure, there's always going to be something like, I think it's great that you can step up and say, you know what, visualization didn't work for me. And I've kind of put it on the sidebar because I was doing it the way that, that you were initially doing it and it just didn't work. And so I lost interest in it. It doesn't work for me. I think that's just as important to openly talk about, right? You've got to be able to do like little experiments for yourself, right? Figure out what works and keep that, and what doesn't work, just ditch it. It's not worth trying to keep doing if it's not working.
Yeah, it's always a take the best and leave the rest, right? And then, understanding that your worth as a human being on this planet is not tied to how well you use a certain type of technique, or how well a presentation goes, or how well you handled some situation at your kid's school or whatever, right? Like your worth as a human is not tied to any one thing. Only you get to define that. And the more that we can let ourselves off the hook and try different things and experiment and be curious, because when you're curious, you have a more non-judgmental, open mindset of, I'm going to try this. Am I going to like it? Maybe, maybe not. If I don't like it, that's cool, right? Like you can take it down to like a very simplistic level of, well, I've never had pepperoni pizza before. I've heard it's really good, but I've heard it really sucks too. So I'm going to try it, and I'm going in there with an open mindset of maybe I'll love pepperoni pizza and maybe I won't. And if I don't like it, I don't ever have to eat it again. But if I do like it, then I've just found something else that I can add to my favorite restaurant menu item or whatever. So it's really like it's taking that kind of non-judgmental, curious mindset really, really helps with anxiety.
I love that. And I was just thinking with you talking about, your worth not being tied up in whether or not you do well at this, or your perceived outcome of whatever this is, with air quotes included, right? Whatever we're being anxious about. Do you think that, I know for myself as a former survivor, well, as a survivor of former child abuse, I know that my identity for a long time was wrapped up in my ability to succeed or fail at things, right? That was 100% what claimed my worth. If I did something successfully, then I was successful. And if I didn't, then I was a giant failure. And I couldn't really, for quite a number of years, I couldn't separate myself from those things, those little events here and there, a little task, a little project, a little presentation, a little whatever. Everything had to be perfect in order for me to feel like I was worthy. And I know that I've had other conversations with people who have not disclosed any type of abuse in their past, but they also deal with different types of like imposter syndrome, or that real lack of confidence type of thing. So do you think that is related somehow, that there's a reason why some people can be really attached to or identify with whether or not they're successful at even the simplest things in life?
Well, sure. And a lot of that can be tied to, a trauma history. Of course, it doesn't have to be. There's plenty of people who struggle there, who've never had any type of childhood trauma. But I find it's oftentimes you're trying to overcompensate for something that you wish you would have done, or something that you wish you would have done better, or something that happened to you that you want to make sure never ever happens again. Or you feel like you've been a perceived failure in so many areas, or you've been groomed that you're a failure and you're worthless and all these kinds of things. So then you overcompensate by, well, if I do great in school, if I do great at my job, if I do great in relationships, if I'm a great parent, if I'm a great whatever it is, then I can kind of stick it to those people and show them that, hey, I'm not that way. And there's something to be said for, wanting to strive and achieve the things, right? But then where it gets dangerous is then when you get into the whole perfectionistic realm, which of course perfection is a fallacy, but it's what we chase because we think if we do it quote unquote perfect, or up to somebody else's standards, which we're never going to meet anyway. So you can see just like all the things that are immediately against you when you try and do this. But when you try and overcompensate in the other direction from, I was way over here on this side, now I'm going to go way over here to the other side, and eventually the healing, the contentment lies somewhere in the middle, right? Because you start out way over here on one side where, if you're a survivor of abuse, or you've been through some kind of traumatic circumstance, or you've had something happen in your life, you're way over on one side of how bad everything is, how miserable everything is, how I can't do this, that, and the other thing, and you've got all this trauma history or whatever it is. Then you go way over to the other side, and maybe you're working with a therapist, and maybe you've become a perfectionist. Maybe you're trying to overcompensate and work through everything right away, and then so you kind of find your way back in the middle of, yes, I went through all this stuff and dealt with all this stuff, and yes, I went over here to the other side and tried to fix it all right away. But in the middle is that slow, steady, compassionate, curious mindset that allows me to move forward at my own pace and not have to fix everything right away that was broken, seemingly broken from a long time ago.
Oh, I love that so much. I want to go back to that tendency that we tend to have of over analyzing things that we've done in the past, or oh, I wish I said this, or I wish I would have said this with this tone and this inclination instead, or I wish I would have stood up for myself more. I wish, right? And like we've been talking all along, it's like it's done. There's nothing that we can do about it. Nothing we ever do is going to change it. Even if we make a game plan to do something different and react differently the next time we're in that situation, we're never going to make that past situation go away. It's there. So, I mean, you're a life coach, you're a anxiety coach, you are an NLP Master Practitioner. Do you have any tips? I mean, you're also a survivor and somebody that has gone through anxiety as well. Do you have any tips for how we can stop that and actually allow ourselves to let it go?
Well, yeah, and I mean that's one of the most difficult things to ever try and figure out, right? And I don't know that anybody ever necessarily masters it. I mean, you kind of become adept at it, or you become efficient at it in your own way, but you're always going to struggle with this stuff, whatever it is. But I think being able to just say, and this kind of goes back to DBT and something that Marsha Linehan created. Obviously, for those who are familiar, DBT was like instrumental for me when I was in therapy. I did a lot of CBT, a lot of DBT, all this kind of stuff. And even though I'm not a therapist now, I understand. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm not a therapist, period. But I understand that the ideas and the concepts behind DBT are just amazingly helpful. And in one in particular, radical acceptance, which we talked about a little bit earlier, and that is this. At its heart, radical acceptance is really, this happened in the past, whatever it is, I can't change it. I wish it would have gone this way, sure. And there's nothing wrong with saying, my God, I wish I would have handled that differently. But where the damaging part comes in is where you just ruminate about it and overthink it, and it just it takes over your life, right? So it's really about this. When this happened, whatever it was, I cannot change it no matter how much. So what can I learn from it? What can I do about it to use this to my advantage in the future, right? So radical acceptance, letting yourself off the hook of, regardless of what you did wrong or right in your own mind or otherwise, or however something went, the fact that you can't go change it anymore, I mean, unless you are going to get in your DeLorean and go back to the future, you're not going to be able to, yes, I'm an 80s guy. You're not going to be able to go back and change something. So if you can't change it, what's the next best course of action? How can I learn from it? Because if something happened once, it's probably going to happen again in some form or fashion. So if you can use that opportunity as a curious learning example for your life, then you can say, okay, if this happens again, I know how it went last time. I know how I reacted. And maybe I can find a better way to handle it, right? And again, you don't go down the realm of overthinking and overcompensating, have it ruling your life, but you just be curious of, situation A happens. So if that happens again, I'm going to respond hopefully differently by trying this. And maybe it'll happen 2 or 3 more times in my life. And I'm going to try out different ways to try and figure out what's the best way to deal with this in a more healthy, non self-judgmental way. So I think one of the best ways is really to, first of all, I understand that you can't change it as much as you wish you would. And, figuring out what can I learn from it to use it to my advantage in the future. And then understand that, okay, it may or may not ever come up again, but if it does, I've got knowledge now, and knowledge really in beating anxiety is power.
Oh, I absolutely adore that. Knowledge is power. So, so true. So, I mean, it sounds like you believe that anxiety is curable. Is it truly curable? Can you really beat it? And if so, what would that even look like?
Well, and that's kind of the $64,000 question. And the answer is it depends on your definition of a cure, right?
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
really is like anxiety. And this is something that I wholeheartedly believe. And, it really is this: you cannot eliminate anxiety from your life. You cannot eliminate stress from your life. You simply cannot do it. There's always going to be someone, somewhere, some circumstance that's going to cause you, there's going to be some stressor. And as a result, potential anxiety, right? Because anxiety is the result of stressor,
Yes.
of a stressful situation. So there's
Yeah.
always going to be something in your life that is a stressor, which could result in feeling anxious or full-blown anxiety. And so understanding that, trying to rid yourself of all stress and anxiety is impossible. You're never going to do it. So what's the next best thing? How can I learn from it? From past situations, how can I mitigate the effects of stress on my life? So you can minimize stressful situations, absolutely, right? Put up healthy boundaries, don't be around certain people, all the things you can do to minimize stressful situations, right? And to mitigate the effects of anxiety. So it's really about, you can beat anxiety by having the tools that you need. So when it happens, when you feel anxious, when you have an anxiety attack, when you feel overwhelmed, when you worry, when you feel wobbly and unsure and all the stuff, okay, I've got an arsenal of skills at my ready that I can try. If I try one and it doesn't work, I'm going to try another one and try another one and try another one until I find something that works in that situation, right? So it's really having enough self-compassion, enough awareness, and the skills and the knowledge of how anxiety affects you in particular, right? Doesn't matter how it affects your spouse or your kids or your boss or your friends, right? Like, how does it affect you? Okay, well, I know that it generally affects me in situation A, B, C, and D. And so what can I do to help myself? Well, I'm going to develop skills A, B, C, D, E, and F to compensate, or whatever. So you're going to develop skills to have at your ready, things that you've written down, things that you keep on your phone, things that you keep at your desk at work or at your workstation, that when you start to feel a little anxious, you can get that note out and say, okay, what can I do in this situation, right? Because anxiety, one of the biggest things it does is it makes you forget what you know, right? Like, you can have all the information and plan and skills and knowledge in the world, but when you feel like full blown anxiety, you feel anxious, you feel worried, you suddenly forget everything, right? Like, you don't remember what those skills are because your mind's gone poof, like it's gone 100 different directions. So
Yeah.
writing things down is very key and it's very helpful. So, being able to go to that skills list or that toolbox and then utilize those to mitigate the effect of anxiety in that situation, and then go on about your life, doing your self-care, going on about your day and doing whatever. So it's beatable in the sense of that you can mitigate it and control it by learning about it and taking matters into your own hands and not just, giving it free reign in your life as before. So you can't eliminate stress, but you can minimize it, and then you can give yourself the skills you need to help you in every situation. And that is empowering, because then you tip the scales in your favor of, I may get anxious feelings now and then. I may feel a little overwhelmed. God knows I'm going to be stressed, but I'm going to deal with it differently than I used to. And if I get overwhelmed and I feel anxious and everything, I'm not going to be down for hours, days, weeks, or months at a time. I might be down for a couple hours or an evening or maybe a weekend. And then I'm going to pick myself back up because I'm going to do the self-care and everything I need to do. And then I'm going to go on about my life.
Oh, I absolutely love it. It's like shifting that false sense of control that we were talking about before by overthinking everything and planning out every wrong scenario that could happen to try to make you feel less anxious, but instead doing all of these tips and tricks that you've got here to be really aware of things, to really bring in full empowerment. So it's not really control, it's empowerment. You're shifting one for the other, right? It's amazing.
Yeah, it is, right? I mean, when you and it's like I teach, right? Like if anxiety has power, you don't. If you feel empowered,
Yeah.
anxiety has less power. So it's all about what can I do to tip the scales back in my favor, or to give myself the power and the confidence that I know something's going to happen at some point, or something's going to come up, and I'm going to say, and I'm going to need to put these skills to work, and I'm going to need to do it as often as I need to, and that's totally fine. So it's finding ways to make you feel like you're no longer in the grip of anxiety, but you can tell anxiety basically where to go.
Yeah, I love it. And in that sense, you're right. It's not that you're never going to have anxiety again. It's that's not really what first of all, it's not realistic, but even with any other type of limitation that you could talk about, right? It's the same sort of thing. It's not necessarily about eliminating it altogether. It's more about learning what works for you in coping under those circumstances so that you don't allow it any longer to hold you back and bring you down, but that you've got the power to actually have the awareness of what's going on and to make different choices.
Yep, that is exactly the way you do it, right? It's taking care of yourself. It's taking matters into your own hands and understanding that you don't have to live the way that you used to before, and that you're going to be able to handle whatever comes up. And yeah, you're going to stumble, you're going to forget to do something, you're going to fall down, you're going to be like, oh my god, I wish I would have handled that better. But that's just human. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you suck, doesn't mean you're broken or you're a failure or anything else. It just means that, hey, life happens, and if something hits me out of the blue, or I have a rough day, or my coping skills don't work, doesn't mean that all of a sudden I'm taking 100 steps backwards. It just means that, hey, maybe I need to reassess. Maybe it was just a fluke, but I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm going to learn from it so I can use that to my advantage in the future as well.
Yes, and it all starts with awareness, right? You can't do any of this until you allow yourself to be aware of what's actually going on and the power that you actually have in all of this.
That's exactly right. It is. You are exactly right.
Ah, yes, I love it. Oh, thank you so much, Matt, for being on the show. I knew that this was going to be great. I mean, I've been on your show a couple of times, and I knew that you just had so much to offer and that my audience would just adore you. So I'm so grateful, my friend, that you were able to come on and talk so openly with us about this. I just know there's so many people that are going to hear this and say, oh my gosh, I actually have all the power here. And they're going to be on a totally different path now after listening to you. So thank you.
You are most welcome, and I'm glad to be here on your podcast, which you're doing an amazing job, by the way. And you
Thank
always have
you.
an open invitation to come back on mine anytime.
Thank you. Now, I am going to put all the links to your podcast, your website, your socials, all of that stuff in the show notes. But could you just let the audience know who's listening now? What's the best way to get in touch with you? Find out more about what you do.
You can hit me up anytime. Just go to beyondyourpast.com, or just Google Beyond Your Past and you'll find me. The links to the podcast are there. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, kind of, sort of. Like I'm just not good at Instagram, right? Like I get it. I don't have the knack for it. It is what it is, right? But I do enjoy Twitter quite a bit. I am on Facebook, but just go to my website. Check out the podcast if you like. Drop me a contact form if you have questions, or you just want to chat, or whatever.
Fantastic. And I love the name of I don't think I've ever told you how much I love the name of your business, Beyond Your Past. That is really, really fitting.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean that's originally when I first started my survivor journey, I had a blog called Surviving My Past, which is still up.
Oh,
But then when
yeah.
I started to kind of shift and I started to heal and I started to learn more about myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm no longer surviving it. Now I'm going to move beyond it. And that's going to be, taking my healing into my own hands and, working with others now and all the stuff that entails. So it was kind of a
Ah,
natural progression.
that's fantastic. I love it. Thank you so much, Matt. We'll have to have you back on because there's so many other things that you could be talking about. I just know. So, so look forward to having Matt back on soon. Thank you,
Anytime,
Matt.
Lisa. Thank you.
There isn't much in life that couldn't be overcome without a greater understanding, including anxiety. I love Matt's first tip the most because of this. When you truly understand what your symptoms are from, that the gremlin on your shoulder is due to fear from the past, and that you can control, manage, and even beat it, everything changes. But Matt's right about something else that's crucial. You must want it badly enough. Until you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll settle into the comfort zone of anxiety, almost soothed by that gremlin who stops you in your tracks. Anxiety will be part of life that you're so familiar with, you won't want to explore who you'll be without it. But when you're ready for that change, there will be nothing stopping you. I also love how Matt talks about the power of distraction in beating anxiety and how that differs from straight up ignoring it. Ignoring anxiety just leads to a buildup which will make your anxiety heightened. Understand where it's coming from, that it's not reality, that you've had 100% success in getting through situations before and you will do the same now, and then distract yourself by filling your time with things you enjoy. Thank you to my guest today, life coach and NLP Master Practitioner and my friend Matthew Pappas, for sharing his knowledge and experiences with us. With anxiety being such a prevalent mental health challenge in today's world, we need more conversations like this. As always, you can find links to Matt's website, podcast, and socials in the show notes. Just go to lifelikeyoumeanit.com/blog. And thank you for listening to another episode of the Life Like You Mean It podcast. Now go make a list of all the things you can do to distract yourself and occupy your mind in a different direction.
Thanks for listening to the Life Like You Mean It podcast. Head on over to the show notes for this episode and all past episodes at www.lifelikeyoumeanit.com/blog. If you love the show, leave a rating and review. Share that love by spreading the word. Post a link to your social media. Share it with your friends and follow or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast hosting site. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, remember to live your life on purpose by living life like you mean it.